Hello and welcome to another LOTRO video with me, Balthelion. Today we're going to be discussing Turbine's 2015 roadmap for LOTRO and what they plan doing with the game over the coming year. This topic turned out to be quite a bit bigger than I imagined, so this video will be primarily related to the producer's letter that was released in January and any topics that came out of that. I'll probably also be doing a few follow-up videos for all the other topics that have been discussed since the producer's letter came out. So let's begin with what we knew at the end of 2014 then. We knew that this year they would be adding both Osgiliath and Minas Tirith over the year. We also knew that the new legendary item system where you could lock in a defined configuration for your weapon and then have it level with you would also be implemented. This was something that was originally going to be in November's Update 15 release, but they deferred it until this year. So it should be released with Update 16, which should probably be around the springtime. So to start then, let's recap with what happened with this year's producer's letter. First off, executive producer Aaron Rowan Campbell announced that he was moving off of the LOTRO team at Turbine to work on another project at the company. He'd previously worked on LOTRO before and then moved to another game within the company, and then later returned as LOTRO's executive producer about a year ago. And this was a shame to kind of lose him from the team, because during both his stints working on LOTRO, he was always one of the more open and accessible members of the team when it came to communication with the players. And he had this to say in his farewell message to the community. After 8 years, 5 expansions and 1 free-to-play transition, the time has come for me to sail to the west. More accurately, I'm moving 30 feet down the hall to start a new project at Turbine. With that, I'm leaving you in the very capable hands of another Turbine veteran, executive producer Athena Peters. LOTRO has been at the centre of my professional and personal life for many years now, including my almost annual pilgrimage to Germany to speak with our players at Gamescom. In this year, I believe we've done a great job of focusing on what you, the players, would like to see in the game. We've listened to you and changed our plans. The most significant change was probably pulling a level cap out of Update 15. In the next year, you'll see a continued drive to deliver great story content and an authentic world, but you will also need new investment in group challenges and content. Even after almost 8 years, the LOTRO team continues to grow and adapt in Middle-earth. We now have Athena Vivian Peters in his place, which is not a name that I recognise, a sentiment shared by the community when she first arrived. When asked to tell us more about herself, she provided the following statement. I have been with Turbine for 4 years, working on Dungeons & Dragons Online for the most of that time, but have spent a few months transitioning to LOTRO. I have been a DDO and LOTRO player since beta. Prior to this, I worked for a few startups and on several MMOs, working at companies like NCSoft, Real Time Worlds and Wolfpack Studios. Online games have been my passion and career since 1999, when I fell in love with the genre. Later that day, we also got the 2015 producer's letter from Vivian, which was our greatest guide as to what to expect this year. Let's break down the key points of that letter. First up was a general statement as to where we were headed this year. Our story continues in 2015 with both Osgiliath and Minas Tirith. Although there will be multiple updates throughout the year, these major locations will be the focus of our largest releases. Each expands the world of Middle-earth even further, and puts us in view of the Balthelion and Mordor itself. This statement confirmed that Osgiliath and Minas Tirith were still on the cards for this year. The comment about being in view of the Balthelion may or may not be revealing as well. This translates as the outer fence and refers to the mountains on the western edge of Mordor. Whether we will see them from a long distance due to their size or get a bit closer to them could be relevant depending on which landmasses we receive this year. Vivian had this to say about Minas Tirith. Minas Tirith will not be an expansion, it will be another large regional update slated for the second half of the year. Vivian also elaborated on the timings for updates this year. Release schedule. We are looking at 2 major region releases for the year, Osgiliath in the spring and Minas Tirith in the fall. Between those releases will be smaller updates with other features, fixes, etc. I do not believe in assigning or announcing dates on updates until we are nearing a completed state, as that impedes the opportunity to make corrections based on feedback or testing. This is why I also don't talk in details about things you might not see for a couple of months or more, because details can change. Next up was a quote on the planned legendary item updates. With the Osgiliath update, you will be able to imbue level 100 legendary items. An imbued item continues to gain experience and will no longer need to be deconstructed to advance. These items are already in internal testing. There are many details still to work out, but you should expect a developer diary on the topic this year. This was pretty much what we knew on the topic already, so there was nothing new or groundbreaking about that statement. Following that was a quote on group content. New fellowship challenges. As we push into the heart of the War of the Ring, this is the perfect time for us to renew our focus on group content and instances. Expect new instances in Osgiliath, along with additional roving threats and group content on the landscape. So this was our first surprise of the producer's letter. After neglecting traditional Fellowship instances for over 2 years now, Turbine had now announced that they were going to be working on some more. It's still too early to comment on how fun or challenging they're going to be, but it'll be interesting to see how those turn out. Vivian later expanded on this with the following quote. We are specifically referring to a cluster of instance content for 3 and 6 man fellowships that is neither an epic battle nor a raid. We evaluate the type of content we build for each region for what is appropriate and feasible. So we might do a raid again someday, but Osgiliath is not the time to do it. When asked about Turbine's lack of support for group content in recent years, Vivian responded with the following statement. Group and solo content. Both of these styles of play are very important to the development team, so there is never an intention to do only one of these for the foreseeable future. In fact, just the opposite. We are constantly trying to balance the availability of play for all styles of adventure. Just because one update has group content in it does not mean that it will not also have content that is soloable or the next update won't fit that bill. I personally, due to the random times I have to jump in and out of game, tend to be a solo player, so I would hate to see that option go away. Next was a comment on the general gameplay experience. Quality of life. We have been working to identify your most persistent bugs. You can expect a renewed focus on resolving issues that may be small but troublesome, to improve overall gameplay experience. It's a simple quote, but it can mean a lot if they deliver on their promises. They've already finally gotten around to addressing the bug that caused you to dismount your horse when running through very shallow water, which was a very welcome bug fix for the community. The next quote was a bit more cryptic. Episodic content. We are currently in development on a new type of quest content that will roll out like an episodic TV show, a little at a time as you follow a new friend across Middle-earth, seeing familiar places in a new light. To me, this sounds like they are not talking about the epic story, but instead are talking about other content that will follow a similar structure and run in parallel to the epic story. Something a bit like the In Their Absence questline we had a few years ago, or the interlude session plays we've had more recently, to tell us what the Grey Company were up to before they met Aragorn at Isengard. Again, it's too early to speculate, but I'm interested to see what Turbine bring with this. Next was the quote I'm most concerned about. Server populations. Based on your feedback, we are taking measures to get everyone onto the more populous servers, so that finding parties is easier and festivals and live events are more fun. We are working on both improved server transfer tools and upgrades to our environments to improve playability. Also, we will be moving our European servers back to the EU. More details on this coming soon. So what Turbine mean by this statement is they are going to be closing down some of the smaller servers and moving players on those servers to the more populated servers. While there are certainly some benefits to be gained here, these are vastly outweighed by the negatives. For starters, the fact they have publicly acknowledged the problem is alarming in itself, as typically Turbine have been keen to ignore major issues in the past. By saying this to players as well, it's acknowledging to the players that the player base is dwindling, as the mere mention of server merges may make players leave the game for good already, which can only make this problem worse. This may also discourage potential new players from joining the game. There's also the issue of which servers will close and which will remain. If you're on a server that remains, you probably won't notice any difference, except perhaps more new players playing on your server. If you're on a server that closes, however, this presents a number of problems. For starters, the names of your characters may already be in use on the server you end up on, so you'll either end up with an immersion breaking -1 appended to the end of your name, or forced to have a name change to a brand new character's name. While I can't speak for everyone, I know I'd be really annoyed at having to change the name of one of my characters, which I've known potentially for up to 8 years. If it were to happen to my server, it could honestly be the breaking point for me where I quit the game, on this single point alone. Besides these individual issues, there's also the problem of how does this affect kinships and other social groups on each server. Will your whole kinship be able to move to the same server? What if some of these players want to go to a different server? Even if kinships were voluntarily or forcibly moved to the same server, there's no guarantee that other friends you knew on your old server will move to the same server. These issues could tear apart kinships and communities, which LOTRO's player base is founded upon. With the vast majority of the community expressing their concerns on this topic, Vivian quickly stepped in to address the almost entirely negative response to this point with the following quotes. "I know that many are worried about server transfers. It is a scary thing to have to change a much settled in environment. This is why there will be many articles, announcements, communication and requests for feedback before anything actually happens. The goal is to be able to give you the ability to move to a more populous and stable environment of your choosing, either EU or NA, with your friends and kinships, and the things you have acquired over the years with as little loss, downtime or hassle as possible. We are still working through the details, but part of our efforts here are to make the transition as seamless as possible for kinship leaders to keep the players together. The idea is to bring you together, not spread you further apart. This effort also includes upgraded hardware and a move to a better location for internet traffic for the US servers. This is a large and complicated process which I am fully focused on. More details on this in the coming weeks as more of the timelines and tech solidify. There will be no forced data merge from one server to another, or to combine two servers. When and if players move, they will make the choice themselves of which of the available worlds they want to move each of their characters and account or kinship to. Yes, we are likely to close a number of servers to play, but only after a large grace period, and even after that, the characters will remain available to be moved to another server to play on indefinitely. We have an idea of the servers we will wish to keep and which to close, but that list is not yet set in stone and may be subject to change as we see the results of transfers and some of the hardware investigation we are currently doing. We may not be able to allow transfers between European and US servers due to data concerns that remain from prior merges, but we are looking into it to see if any of our new tech might bridge that hurdle. Cross-server play and chat is something we looked into, but was not feasible with the age of our code and the sheer amount of character data that could conflict. Vivian also expanded on how the transfer process would work. The server moves will be started with a listing of preferred servers, their new locations, and an opening of free transfers to these servers. None of this will be limited by EU or NA. You can play on whichever server you like on the preferred server list, regardless of where you might physically be located. We're working on some tech that will make transfers smoother and more beneficial, which is why this has not yet begun. More info as we get closer to that. Note that what Vivian means here is that as a player in Europe, for example, you could still continue to play on a US server or start playing on one. The issues preventing server transfers of characters between US and EU servers still exist. Vivian also confirmed that players would have a grace period where they could move between servers free of charge. As for free transfers after improvements are made, yes, after we improve the transfer process, the plan is to keep transfers to the most populated servers free for some time to allow players to move over to these servers using the new tools. How long those will remain free is still yet to be determined. Vivian also confirmed that players who do not transfer before their server closes will have nothing to worry about. If your server is ever closed, you will always have the option to move characters from that server to another open world for free, but transfers between already high populated worlds may not remain free, as we do not want to encourage a constant hopping back and forth between servers. The only silver lining on this topic is that Turbine have decided to move the EU servers back to Europe, where they were originally hosted when the EU service was being run by Codemasters. This should approximately halve the ping of most European players, based on the old service. For example, I used to get about a 50 millisecond ping when the servers were in Europe under Codemasters, and now average about 110 milliseconds with the servers hosted in Boston in America. Vivian elaborated more on the server move to Europe with the following quote: "This will simply be a move of the physical servers to Amsterdam. The service will still remain in the hands of Turbine, so we will all still have the same downtime, updates etc. in sync with one another. Better location and newer hardware should result in better performances all around." Amsterdam was also where Codemasters used to host the European service, so the decision to move the servers back here, plus the use of brand new hardware for the servers, should be a massive improvement in gameplay quality for European players. Community manager Andy Frelon Cataldo also confirmed this was the reason for the move. As many have said already, the move is strictly for performance. The servers will be closer to those in the EU and the hardware will be upgraded in the process. The final topic covered in the producer's letter was PvMP, player versus monster player combat. Vivian had the following to say on the topic. PvMP. The team is also seriously investigating a new PvMP map in Osgiliath. The landscape would tell the story of the Battle of Osgiliath, and the layout of the city, split by the River Anduin, is perfect for smaller and more tightly focused conflicts than the Etermoors. This would make the perfect platform for gradual improvements to the PvMP experience overall. We'll provide additional updates on this initiative as we get deeper into 2015. Suggestions of a new PvMP map have been around in the past, with Turbine frequently retracting their statements when they realise the time investments required to make it happen. With a smaller development team today, plus the word seriously investigating being used in this quote, I take the promise with a pinch of salt. It may finally happen, but it would likely end up delayed or incomplete when it arrives. Vivian expanded on this topic with the following quote: "This will be a different layer to the map. This way, players will be able to explore Osgiliath in PvE mode in Update 16, and the goal is then also to provide a PvMP version shortly thereafter, not on the same release date. Personally, I would speculate that the PvMP version of Osgiliath will arrive at the end of the year, along with the Minas Tirith regional update." So that's all for this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm hoping to find the time to cover other topics discussed by the development team in the year so far, as well as doing some semi-regular videos on the latest LOTRO news going forwards. If you'd like to see more discussion-based videos like this, please let me know in the comments, along with any discussion topics you'd be interested to see. In the meantime, you can check out my channel for more LOTRO themed and other gaming videos, and please be sure to like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.